Hey guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? I'm hanging in. I'm going to try to get as much videos out as possible between now and the end of the month, because I probably will be not having electric and all that fun amenities that we all take for granted. Yeah. So please hit that like button. Please share and subscribe. That way you'll get to see all the goodies before. Not that my channel will go down. It's just I won't be here. And I keep saying that each month, and then a miracle happens, but I can't expect the same person to keep bailing me out, because you know the news tells you one thing, but in reality it's a whole nother ball game. Yes, it is. I hope you all had a good 420. The Gray Agenda. We're going to continue with the Yellow Book, but the Yellow Book did have some very interesting artwork. And because that is, now, mind you, I got my degree $17 years ago, something like that. I don't recall off the top of my head, like I was in art history class, to tell you what each of the paintings are called and who did them, but you'll recognize them, I promise. Also, before I even begin, please check out my the latest Law of One reading that I have done. It's going to explain a lot of things that people like completely miss when it comes to the infiltration and the aliens. Okay? They're a service to self. Most of us are a service to others. And we have to have, their density is duality. You have to have your divine masculine, your divine feminine. You also have to have good and evil. In order for us to learn and go through experiences, certain things have and will continue to occur. So Ross says it a lot. I might be able to read that. I was trying to hold off to the next episode. We'll see. But I want to show some artwork, so bear with me. But I wanted to let people understand and comprehend that you stand in your sovereignty. You as a person, no one can take you over unless you give them consent. How's that? You have to give a being consent. That's the cosmic law, so to speak. So you inviting them to be infiltrated, and sometimes it's pre-arrangement, pre-incarnation. You have these experiences because they were prearranged. You could put a stop to it and stand in your sovereignty and say, fuck off, I don't consent. And then they can't touch you. You don't consent. You're breaking my free will. You don't consent. Get a lot of comments. You have to have duality. You have to have good and bad. What we're going through right now is because we did, this is the second time we're doing this, because we all messed up the first time. All messed up the first time. And it's not fun. So I'm going to show you the first piece of artwork, which I find holy wow. So we have Mary and Yeshua. What does that look like? They're in a circle. That could be the light body, that could be the light vehicle, but it in the clouds. So a lot of the people that are looking into UFOs are saying that the ships are actually cloaked in the clouds. And then down here you see a lot of craft in the painting in the air. Okay, I'm not worried about what these people are doing down there. They're not even focused up here. But look at that. I find that very interesting. I find this negative space very interesting, very telling. Cone heads here. You know why they probably wear those hats, right? So that's one. So we have Mary here, and I have my little dot there. I have another one of those. Hang on. Not that one, not that one. No, where'd it go? It disappeared. Sorry, guys. Give me a second. I had a bigger version of that one. It disappeared. Okay, either way, you saw that little, right? Sorry, there's like a lot of clicking here. I'm trying not to. Okay, so this one, I'm gonna shrink it a little bit. We have our figure of Moses with the tablets, right? The 10 Commandments. Now, very faintly, oops, I didn't mean to do that. We have these little blobs. What are those? And I know it's very pixelated, guys. That's just a canvas. It's what it is. A lot of paintings, when you look up close, you can see a lot more detail. In photographs of paintings, sometimes you really can't. So I find that very interesting with Moses here. This next one I find extremely interesting because it takes us, I don't know, I don't want to claim any language to this. It could be Korean, Chinese, it could be Japanese, so I don't really know. I took sign language instead of Japanese in high school because it got closed out really quick, even though I love sign language. So I don't know what time period this is from, but I find this very interesting. There's a lot more of these pictures, illustrations in a book. But just kind of not kill everybody with too many images. I just find it very interesting. Now, look at that. Look at that. I wish I knew the artist here, but that is crisp, guys. This is crisp. I mean, it just being the artist observer here. there is a different technique and style to the rest of this painting that you're not seeing in the craft and the back of the sky in itself. Like, this is very rough strokes, very, very rough texturalized painting technique here. I mean, even in the background here, it's a very rough texturalized feeling. And then you get to this smooth, shiny background that is not texturalized, that is very smooth and very flowing. Yeah, it's a smaller, but I mean, it looks, I can't even say that looks like, I mean, I've seen this before, and it is, I don't think it's photoshopped. But the style of painting, it's like going from a Vincent van Gogh to like a Pablo Picasso. Like, their stylization is completely, utterly different. But then, you know, like establishing these lines, it like is hitting the gray, because you can see the coloration. I don't know how well you can see it on that side, but it is, I mean, it is a part of it. You could see there's a lot of rough edges over here that you could see that the artist was painting over the gray. So, I mean, it's there. But I mean, the composition too is very odd. I mean, obviously this UFO was not trying to do anything to him. Otherwise, you would see the beams of light illuminate him, and they're not. He's here in the foreground. He's not front and center, because the painting is small. But he's the centerpiece, but like the stylization of everything else is just weird, and I don't know what these are, what those represent. But yeah, so I found this one intriguing, very intriguing. Now, this last one, yeah, this should be the last one that I chose to pick out. We kind of already saw this on the yellow book with the craft and the beams coming down. We have 4 beams, but here we have another very interesting surrealist. We have a little like character over here. So that's a UFO. They look like jellyfish. And then we have to see like what, a bishop or a Monsignor. I don't even know. I'm bad with the religion thing, guys. But then what the hell is this Draco demon? He has hooves over here. He has a funny looking booty. Trying to keep it clean. I don't know when this was done, but it's genius. It has like an octopus kind of like tail with the wings. We got the horns here, and we got the snarly little looking funky teeth. Very thin, so it looks gray. It looks like a gray species, maybe reptilian. I don't see the scales, but yeah, and then we have a cross in the background here, and then we have some, you know, figures, you know, just ignoring this, like, I mean, look at the expression on this dude. Can't even look the demon in the eye. I don't know, I find it very intriguing. It's just me. So I thought it would be really cool to open up the discussion, the show. looking at that artwork. I love looking at artwork. It's something I do. But I wanted to show, like, it through history, it's been depicted. And I didn't touch the hieroglyphics or the pictographs from Egypt. I'm sure many of you who have been watching and studying into this know already what those look like. Also in ancient Indian cultural art, they have a lot. A lot. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments if you did. Those are just a few. I wanted to get more, but some of them weren't as intriguing to me, but those definitely like stood out to me and really made me think, which is a good thing. What's going on? So now I'm going to go back to the yellow book. I showed some pictures of the Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I think I did. I know I've touched on movie pictures before. So I don't remember if I did Close Encounters, but I'm going to read anyway, anywho, on what the yellow book has to say about the Close Encounters of the Third Kind and the yellow book. Did you realize that before Close Encounters of the Third Kind, there was the movie E.T., which was a representation of an actual extraterrestrial visitation by EBE, a chlorophyll-based alien recovered from the infamous Roswell crash in 1949 with the question mark. Steven Spielberg's 1977 film Close Encounters of the Third Kind is based on the famous Holloman landing, where the US government was present with the Yellow Book by the E-bands, as well as a human ET exchange depicted at the very end of the film, with 10 men and 2 women who were shown embarking on the alien spacecraft. As you are aware, the title of Steven Spielberg's movie came from the UFO classification developed by astronomer and UFO researcher J. Allen Hynek's classification of encounters. I'm going to put a pause right there. What they're talking about is Project Serpo, from my understanding of the exchange. So encounters of the first kind, someone sees a UFO at a distance closer than 500 feet and is able to give a pretty good description of the object. Encounters of the second kind, the viewing of a UFO creates a physical sensation. For example, the encounter may involve a feeling of heat or feeling of paralysis in the body. Encounters of the third kind, encounters in which a type of animated alien creature accompanies the UFO encounter. Hynek was an advisor to the US Air Force on several of its UFO study projects. While he was bound by security clearances, he was undoubtedly privy to information that he was unable to share publicly. Did you realize that he also had a cameo appearance in Spielberg's movie? In the movie, there are human encounters with extraterrestrials. Could there be any truth to this story? It is possible that Earth has contacted ETs or that Americans have visited other planets. What about Ronald Reagan's knowledge of Project Serpo? And just to reiterate, oh, hi, Ethan. Ethan says, hi, guys. I'm a co-host tonight. So I believe after Eisenhower, all the presidents after Eisenhower got briefed on the doings of our terrestrial, extraterrestrial, galactic friends, interdimensional, what have you. Very interestingly, and no one answered this question. I still haven't looked it up. I'm going through some hell in life, so these things kind of escape and come back to my brain. When Don Jr. was interviewing his daddy and asked about Area 51 and if we would ever know what actually took place there, and of course, number 45 couldn't express that answer, but kind of was like, eventually, yes. So that just, you know, why did the man make Space Force? Why is the Artemis Accords being held when we're supposedly in war or gonna be in a war if all the countries, well, not all, but a lot of the major countries are in the Artemis Accords? So if you look at the Accords itself, which I might pull up one day and do an episode on that, that'd be fun. We would establish that the United States is at the forefront of the Artemis Accords, and that we're spearheading and leading the rest of the countries that are involved in our Star Trek future, which was done on Jupiter's moon, Ganymede. And when you think some of these people are leaving in their little spaceships, I mean, look at the Philadelphia experiment. They already perfected that. So I believe that all the presidents after Eisenhower were given briefings on our friends or foes. Regardless, it's all in divine planning. So again, for those who, it's a part of the law of one. It has to do with the polarity. It has to do with this experience had to happen. And now we are finally coming to terms. Yes, there's been people that have been studying UFOs for a long time. I'm one of them. But at the same time, more people are now on a massive scale waking up to these agendas and to this information. Although it's been out for a long time, it was, you know, you put on your and you're a conspiracy theorist and you don't know what you're talking about. That's hoopla, right? But now not so much. More and more people are having experiences. More and more people are seeing stuff in the sky. They can't explain it, but they can't deny it either. And now the mainstream is talking about it on a more massive scale. So these guys knew. And I'm sure the service to self, presidentes, not just in America, all around the world, this applies to everybody, we're in agreement with the negative service to self aliens, Orion group in particular, which inhabits the Draco and the Greys, and all the groups therein that make inform that negative polarity Orion group. Again, there's positive and negative to everything because we have to have polarity in this 3D existence. It extends into 4 and I'm sure in 5D. So a lot of people, again, need to take away the religious aspect. You saw in those paintings, they were depicted. They are a part of the plan. They are a part of God. They are a part of the stage that was set for us to play out a role in this existence. We all chose to be here in this time of now to be conscious, and the vehicle that we chose, which is the ones that we inhabit now, to be consciously aware of the paradigm that is shifting And we need to start manifesting a positive timeline because we're in between timelines right now. I don't think we're merged just yet. We're more on the positive than the negative, but the negative still is latching on. And we could change that. Back to the book. Reagan briefing transcript. The transcript of a President Ronald Reagan briefing by the director William Casey was discovered. It was a top secret meeting and the recording happened between March 6th and 8th, 1981. That's when the bulk of this information was channeled in 1981, by the way. Just putting that out there. Reagan had quite a few questions that he was told would be answered later in an additional session. Reagan maintained that his belief in UFOs and his high regard for Steven Spielberg from time to time. He even invited Spielberg to the White House for a special screening of Spielberg's movie E.T., the Extraterrestrial, released in June 1982. And then the briefing is in the book. Should we fear the yellow book? Okay, since it has been established that the yellow book can recognize speakers of at least 80 Earth languages and reach them in their own languages, obviously it was created to educate all earthly humans and not to be a reference book to provide information to the aliens. So my next question is, have these instruments been distributed to other governments around the world, or is that its purpose? We often hear of abductees having been taken aboard an alien craft and being shown things that will take place in the future or subjects that will be educated on. Is that the real purpose? And if that is the real purpose, is this information real or disinformation to try to trick us? Since it has been shown that our government can easily track us and have access to our conversations and data through our own electronic devices, could it also be possible that the Yellow Book is also a two-way device so that they can eavesdrop on our governments and military installations, or even spy on our whole world for the comfort of their own planet, or even worse, to control and disable our minds by remote control? They have that tech. That's not so far-fetched since our government has been working on perfecting this possibility for a long time. And then it says, read our secret government project book. Oh boy. In our Blue Planet project book, written by Blue Planet Project author Jefferson Souza, is a chapter he wrote about the possibility that many of the alien craft we have captured over the years could really be Trojan horses that the aliens let us capture so they would be taken into our above top secret installations beyond the electronic barriers that even the aliens can breach, so that they can use secret equipment in the craft to have access to secrets or electronic devices normally off limits to each of them. Could they even use the alien craft turned into Trojan horses to attack us from within? Think about it. While this may seem bizarre, it is also very credibly possible. So there's like a whole thing on that. I mean, think about it. The movies that we've watched kind of tell you somewhat of the truth, but then they invert it so that we don't know what's going on. I mean, if you look at Men in Black, that's portrayed as something good when they are really not good. Though the paradigm that when you're walking, especially in New York City, half of the beings that you are walking past are not human. Nope, or they're possessed, number two. But a lot of them are really not what they think they are. They're in, you know, a matrix. If you've ever been in New York City, I live here, so I know a lot about it. Everywhere you go, besides the subway station, mind you, there's cameras everywhere, and there's a lot of different types of sound and other tools that are plugged in to the buildings. You could see them sometimes if you're on a high rise. You can look down at some of the lower buildings, and you could see there's like a whole plethora of different types of dishes and towers of all kinds of sorts. So it's not just 5G and the phones. There's other things going on. And in my theory, this is just me theorizing, it helps so that the shape shifting can continue. That when they're moving around, that it's less likely that they can be seen. But they're walking and moving amongst us all the time. Major cities, it's easier to hide them because of the mass amounts of people, and people are either glued to their phones when they're walking. This is all, I used to have to shoulder butt people because, like, look up. What can't be so important that, just like driving, if you get a phone call or something comes in, you pull over and you read your shit, or you make your phone call and you get back and you concentrate. People don't do that in New York City. They just keep walking, and they walk into traffic, they walk into bike lanes, they do some dumb shit. But all of that is like a distraction. So you don't notice these things walking amongst you. So I do know other people have seen things shape shift in and out. You can tell. So yeah, it does occur. But they've been here since the dawn. They've been here before us. They created us. Good, bad, and the ugly don't matter. They manipulated us. And now it's time for the manipulation to be shown to us. What can we do to do it? We're ascending. We are given light codes, and we're given upgrades from our buddies upstairs. And we'll only know if we ascend to 4D, and we'll find out more information. Or when our physical body dies and we go up, we'll know the truth of it, of all of it. So not to worry. Don't fear anything, because you stand in your sovereignty, and you have the right to say, I don't consent. I mean, I don't consent to what's going on with me, but that's not going to change my situation. Everything that has happened to me was unconstitutional and illegal. And they're still pushing this agenda, even though it was like ruled down. So, mind you, the lunacy that goes on in this place. So this next part is the red book. Most of the yellow book I already went over, talking about the grays, the EBEs. So I don't want to have to repeat myself again. Okay, FYI. I went out earlier to look for the moon. It is just about 2 a.m. here. It is now in my window, where yesterday it was already over here in my window. Now it's like here, where the other day it was here. So if they're not moving shit, I don't know what to tell you. Oh, here's my co-host. Unfortunately, I didn't name my kitties. I named her Morgan. Captain Morgan, by the way. Because, you know, booze is fun. Cat, I have to work here. Hi. Just semi out of the way. The Red Book. Not many people have read the Yellow Book, but those who have made detailed reports on its presidents. Those reports are gathered in what is called the Red Book. The Red Book should be considered an extension of the Yellow Book, as information translated from the Yellow Book will often find its way in the Red Book, where it is combined with information from other sources. The Red Book was written by the US government. It contains volumes of information we have gathered regarding our contacts with extraterrestrial life forms. What actually occurs is that as UFO reports come in deemed credible by the reporting government agency, be it military or civilian, they are routed to a special section of our government for our follow-up analysis. No, it's not the X-Files, but how cool would that be? Mulder and Scully on the case, guys. Best show ever. I mean, one can dream, right? After that vetting process is completed, they are then sent to a special group, which is unnamed, which then places it for final review for possible inclusion in the Red Book. The Red Book is the main source of information for the executive summary, which is delivered to most US presidents. The Red Book includes only the most important compelling cases and also includes an analysis of any trends, types of sightings, human contacts with ETs, and any national security concerns our government or planet might have. Which is why, regardless of what you think about Elena Denon and Michael Salla and some of these insider people, whatever you think about them, okay, they're bringing forward endless amounts of possibilities that could happen. Now, the Artemis Accords are real. It's coordinated by the US government. We know that there are off-sites, DUMBs, China Lake, Cheyenne Mountain, Area 51 and 52, S1, S2, Groom Lake, Pine Gap. There's so many more. Dulce. There's all these bases and all these underground fun. That's where they do a lot of their stuff. This is where we have to think. Their information that they're giving us now is preparing us, regardless whether it's right or wrong, that there is a future, there is a space force that can't be denied. Whether it doesn't matter whether we see space outside of an ice wall or intergalactically, density and dimensions, these exist. There are pocket spaces of the universe. And it's how you perceive and what density you're perceiving things in as well, that a lot of people who channel or do cards and or whatever have said that it's neither one or the other. It's a combination of the both, and it's how you perceive it. So there's really no right or wrong. And I know a lot of us logical thinking people need to see it, need to have the evidence, but they're not going to disclose that stuff. And if you try to go down to Antarctica, you can go down to the base, but you can't go beyond that. And if you dare try, you're done. They don't want you to know their filthy little secrets. I mean, why did half of a lot of different countries have portions in different aspects of Antarctica, and they're off limits? Why? Wonder what's there. No one ever talks about the North Pole. That's even stranger. Canadian friends. So, Pentagon, the alien energy source. US production of Pentagon, hydrogen 5. Much of this process is top secret. First, tritium is made by capturing neutrons in helium gas. No wonder why NASA is the highest buyer of helium. To supply the neutrons, protons are energized in a linear accelerator and used to bombard a heavy metal target made of tungsten and lead, creating neutrons in a process known as splattation. The resulting neutrons are moderated, slow, by collisions with lead and water, increasing the efficiency of their capture in helium gas, flowing through the target to make tritium. The tritium is then extracted from the gas, continuously providing supply to a stockpile. While making tritium, US researchers discovered that another isotope quickly vanished in the process. In fact, several isotopes were discovered that bounced off the tungsten metal. So US researchers began a program that attempted to capture these elusive isotopes. One secret facility was built on the Nevada test site. This facility was called the Lance. The cover story for this facility was that it contained an experimental chemical production accelerator. The Lance tritium production facility contained an injector, accelerator, contaminant building, collection apparatus, and storage vessel. So here is a document that they I don't want to go too much further into that, only because I don't want to get in trouble. So yeah, that's some crazy shit that they do. Since 1956, many experiments were conducted using the CR, crystal rectangle energy source. Most of the experiments were conducted by Los Alamos, or a contractor for the Department of Energy. Remember, the CR was described as follows: the dimensions see, some of these things I don't want to read just in case. The PEVD-1 particle vacuum enhanced energy device. This would indicate that there is a PEVD-2. Scientists do not refer to the CR as a CR, but as a PEVD, or the magical cube. There is a small dot that moved around the inside when an energy demand was placed in the CR. Scientists had discovered that the substance contained in the dot was a perfect round particle of charged antimatter. Our scientists still don't understand how this piece of antimatter could remain stable until it is tasked with movement. And they still don't understand that once a demand is made in the CR, that the antimatter starts in movement and creates energy. Our scientists have found the CR is made of an unknown material with several unknown elements that have been detected. One of the materials is similar to carbon, but not exactly like carbon as we know it. Another substance is similar to zinc, but not the same consistency as zinc. Our scientists cannot explain the action of the antimatter and the actions of neutrons that are created and disappear when the demand is lifted. And our scientists cannot explain why the constant temperature of the CR is 72 degrees. Even when heat is directed on the CR, the temperatures remain at 72 degrees. How this occurs cannot be explained. Some scientists think that CR is operated remotely, perhaps by an unknown satellite in Earth's orbit. However, even when shielded, the CR operates normally. Could it be that it is vulnerable to our shielding, or that it has the capability to store data for a long period of time? When an energy demand is placed on the CR, it creates a signal that could be measured at 23.45 megahertz. However, when increased demand is placed on the CR, the frequency is modulated from 23.45 megahertz to 46.900 megahertz, or double the original frequency. However, when the demand is reduced, the frequency drops down to 1.25 kilohertz, which is a constant frequency when no demand is placed on the CR. Regardless of the power demand is placed on the CR, the frequency never raises to more than 46.900 megahertz. There is a square, and there is a small set of squares which contain horizontal wires. The wires were determined to be similar to tungsten. The wires somehow conduct the energy by bouncing the neutrons off these wires back into the fluid. The small dot bounces against the wire when energy demand is placed on the CR. Only certain wires would react or expand when energy demand was placed on the CR. Scientists think that depending on the demand, only certain wires would expand. Somehow, the energy output could be controlled by the number of squares. The US government was able to make a duplicate of the CR. They made one in 2001 that actually worked for a short period of time. The operation was extremely classified, and the device blew up at the Nevada test site, injuring 2 employees. Wow. That's not fun. This is the timeline for the CR. 1947, CR found in the second site, the crash site. 1949, Los Alamos scientists first conducted experiments with CR. At this time, no one knew what it was. Scientists thought it was just a window. 1954, Sandra Labs conducted several experiments with CR, but still didn't know its actual use. In 1955, CR was lent to Westinghouse for experiments. 1958, CR was lent to Corning Glass in an effort to determine its construction material. 1962, CR's first official test conducted at Los Alamos and published in a classified report. 1970, CR was determined to be more than a window. The CR was found to fit into a space on the spacecraft. Scientists determined CR was some sort of energy device. 1978, CR determined to be high-powered energy device that provided electrical power to the spacecraft. 1982, CR was first tested and produced energy. 1987, CR was given to E-Systems for extensive testing. 1990, CR was proven to be unlimited power system. The construction and contents of the CR was learned. However, no one knew how it worked. 1998, CR project, the Magic Cube, was started in an effort to accelerate the knowledge of the device. 2001, CR project, the Magic Cube, was transferred from Los Alamos Futures Division to its Special Project Section K Division. So, whoa, that's a lot. I mean, yeah, I'm just dumbfounded. Other aliens headed towards Earth. In 1953, astronomers discovered large objects in space which were moving towards Earth. It was first believed that they were asteroids. Later evidence proved that the objects could only be spaceships. Project Sigma intercepted alien radio communication. With the objects reached the Earth, they took up a very high orbit around the equator. There were several huge ships, and their actual intent was unknown. Project Sigma and a new Project Plato, through radio communications using the computer binary language, was able to arrange a landing that resulted in face-to-face contact with alien beings from another planet. Project Plato was tasked with establishing diplomatic relations with the alien races and space aliens. In the meantime, a race of human-looking aliens contacted the US government. This alien group warned us against the aliens that were orbiting the equator and offered to help us with our spiritual development, happening now. They demanded that we dismantle and destroy our nuclear weapons as a major condition. They refused to exchange technology, citing that we were spiritually unable to handle the technology which we then possessed. They believed that we would use any new technology to destroy each other. Truth. This race stated that we were on a path of self-destruction and we must stop killing each other, stop polluting the earth, stop the earth's natural resources, and learn to live in harmony. These terms were met with extreme suspicion, especially the major condition of nuclear disarmament. It was believed that meeting that condition would leave us helpless in face of an obvious alien threat. We also had nothing in history to help with the decision. Nuclear disarmament was not considered to be within the best interests of the United States. The overtures were rejected. Later in 1954, the race of large-nosed gray aliens, which have been orbiting the Earth, landed at Holloman Air Force Base. A basic agreement was reached. This race identified themselves as originating from a planet around a red star in the constellation of Orion, which we call Betelgeuse. They stated that their planet was dying and that at some unknown future time, they wouldn't be able to survive there. That's how they got infiltrated again. This led to a second landing at Edwards Air Force Base. The historical event had been planned in advance and details of the treaty had been agreed upon. Eisenhower arranged to be in Palm Springs on vacation. On the appointed day, the president was spirited away to the base and excused, which I've read about that a bunch. So I'm gonna skip that part. DUMDS. The alien guests would remain on Earth, and the human guests would travel to the alien point of origin for a specific period of time, then return, at which point a reverse exchange would be made. It was also agreed that bases would be constructed underground for the use of the alien nation, and 2 bases would be constructed for joint use, the alien nation and the United States government. Exchange of technology would take place in the jointly occupied bases. For those of you, that is Dulce base in New Mexico. A lot of SSP have been here. And there's a few people, I forgot his name off the top of my head. Super Soldier Talk with James Rank, I think, did an interview with somebody who was there and talks about a lot of his horrible experiences down there. These alien bases would be constructed under Indian reservations in the Four Corners area of Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, and Colorado. And one would be constructed in Nevada in the area known as S4, located approximately 7 miles south of the western border of Area 51. I wonder where S2 is. All alien bases are under complete control of the Department of Naval Intelligence, and all personnel who work in these complexes receive their checks from the Navy. Construction of the bases began immediately, but progress was slow until amounts of money was made available in 1957 via, if you live in the United States, our tax money. Fun, right? I'm probably going to leave this here. So I went over a lot. But genetic experimentation, another major finding was that the aliens were using humans and animals for a source of granular secretions, enzymes, hormonal secretions, blood in horrible genetic experiments. The aliens explained these actions as necessary for their survival. They stated that their genetic structure had deteriorated and they were no longer able to reproduce. I'm going to screen share. Whether this is from a movie set or not, a lot of people who have had experiences have shared that this is what a lot of the rooms look like when they walk by. They see things in containers. They stated that if they were unable to improve their genetic structure, their race would soon cease to exist. We look upon their explanations with extreme suspicion. Since our weapons were literally useless against the aliens, MJ-12 decided to continue friendly diplomatic relations with them until such a time we were able to develop a technology which would enable us to challenge them on a military basis. We are only now able to, with the help of other races, take these things out. Challenging the aliens, overtures would have been made to the Soviet Union and other nations to join forces for the survival of humanity. In the meantime, plans were developed to research and construct 2 weapon systems using the conventional and nuclear technology, which would hopefully bring us to partay. The result of the research with projects Joshua and Excalibur. Joshua was a weapon captured from the Germans, which at the time was capable of shattering 4-inch thick armor plate at a range of 2 miles using low frequency sound waves. And it was believed that this weapon would be effective against the alien craft and beam weapons. Excalibur is a weapon carried by a missile and designed not to exceed 30,000 feet. AGL, a measurement determines the height above the ground. This measurement changes as the topography of the Earth changes. When a plane flies above it, for example, if a plane flies a steady course at 10,000 feet above ground level initially, then a 10,000 foot high mountain would take the AGL 0, not to deviate from the design target more than 50 meters, and would penetrate 1,000 meters of tufa, hard packed soil, such as found in New Mexico, would carry 1 megaton warhead. This was intended for use in destroying the aliens in their underground bases. Joshua was developed successfully, but I'm not sure if or when it has been used. Excalibur, after an unprecedented push to develop this weapon, has similarities to the bunker busters used in Iraq and Afghanistan. Project Odin. Whenever this was cut out, we have Project Odin. It's above us, and it's direct energy weapons, lasers. We have a lot of stuff. We thankfully have, for the most part, we could be thankful now that we have positive, benevolent ETs working with the planet. Because they seeded us, they want to see us succeed, and they failed to help in the time of the Lemuria and Atlantis. And now this is the second coming, in a sense, of their return to see how we have grown consciously and making a turn for the better, where we're not going to destroy everything, and we have more of an understanding of what the consequences to using certain weapons will do. So I believe that a lot of the weapons that are now being made aren't, they're scary sounding, but I feel that they're more for our invaders than they are for taking out the planet. This book is, I'm fascinated with this book. I've chopped it up because I've read a lot of different parts and different episodes, but I feel like reading each time I come back, these topics are fascinating, and it's also really not easy to find these projects outrightly without having like the year after I was born happen. Because that's what happens with the internets and interwebbings. But I'm going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed looking at some artwork, thinking about that, how they've always been here. We just need to start incorporating the idea that they are of God's creation, regardless if they're the positive polarity and the negative polarity. We are both aspects of a shadow and our light selves. Remember, we get depicted with the angel and the devil, and they talk to us, and we get the free will to choose which side we are on. So all these negative entities are playing a role out on our 3D realm to show us how naive and greedy people have been. The problem is we all as a humanity did not agree to these secret backroom decisions that no one, like, we didn't vote on it. We didn't have a word. We didn't even know half of these things even existed until people started coming out with this information. So how can it be any of our faults that this has taken place? It isn't, and it's an infringement on our free will. That's why we've had intervention via Valthor, via other entities that don't make themselves known. And they don't make themselves known because there are still people that just don't believe that it's us and that's it. And that's where the guns and everything can come out, and they don't want to get hurt or shot down or destroyed. So they're being very careful with their coming to our existence. And I think slowly the more humanoid races will come down and kind of, I mean, even though a lot of us can spot them out when they're standing next to certain presidents and walking in certain places, you can definitely see the height difference on a lot of them. Look carefully at pictures of government officials and then look really far off to a corner or to a side. Sometimes you can see them. They're fucking large. They're tall. They are so tall, and it's not easy to pick up on those things unless someone points them out to you. I'm going to see if I can find some pictures on what I'm talking about. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this episode 8B of the Yellow Book and some artwork, and just understanding that the main point of like the last couple of videos in the last week, I really want to strike it home from my own opinion and my perception. We live in a dualistic density. We need to learn from the good and we need to learn from the bad. We need to have things happen to us in order for us and our souls to grow. It can't happen if everything is great and happy all the time. The creator cannot express itself. I'll just say it because it's energy, him, her, whatever, through us. If there's no experience to be had, we wouldn't be here. We're an experiment. This is a LARP. All so that creator can experience itself through us in every aspect and fractalization of us. And I mean, not everybody here will believe in a God or believe in that, but I mean, even mathematically, the nomad, the neutrons, protons, quarks, and all that stuff still works out with logic and reason. So you can look at it in many multiple ways, but you still have to have duality. You have to have your positive and your negative, right? So regardless of what aspect you take this on, we have to have experienced both in order for our souls to grow, because it's energy. And it needs to understand both components and both aspects of those things in order for it to become less dense. Put it that way. We are very dense. And we're moving into a little dense state. So I hope you enjoyed. Because of kitties and cuddles, I didn't grab my sketchbook, but you know what my mitra and my little gray look like. I may work on some more. But with my situation going on, and I'm under a little bit of stress, I'm trying to ignore it. Not that I should be ignoring how I'm going to pay my bills, but there's really nothing I could do. I keep getting no's and put downs and let downs, and I'm just over it. So yeah, here I am, just trying to make it each and every day. But I'm sending each and every one of you love and light. If you can help me, that'd be great. If anything, a like, a subscribe is another way you can help me. It's free, doesn't cost anything. I upload a lot of content. I think each day I try to do at least 2 to 3 videos. And that depends on the day. I also do oracle card readings. There's a lot that I try to do for humanity They're free readings. I do personal ones. If anybody's interested, email me. And yeah, until next time, have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, morning, wherever you are. Be safe, be seen. Shift this timeline, guys. Think of how prosperous and abundant you want this world to become. That there is nobody living in a third world country. There is nobody going hungry. There is no homeless. Everybody is prosperous, doing what they divinely want to do in this world. We all have a specific purpose and want to do specific jobs. Nobody's going to go without. And that's the world that we should be creating for each other. So let's spread that love and light, and let's start visualizing these amazing things so that we can shift this timeline to be not just on a sub octave, but on like the octave of love and light and positivity, and that we don't have to deal with this negative Nancy stuff anymore. Okay. Bye, guys.